12. Back in the studio with us this morning, Wichita Falls Mayor Stephen Santellana here with us this morning. Good morning, Mayor. How are you?
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Great. Good to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
Glad you came up this morning. Lots we can talk about, but the thing we want to focus on today, principally, is the
bond proposals. I talked about this on the show quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, and not long ago, 6 proposals were put together, and you're looking at putting these on the May ballot. And my first question is, why are we rushing this to a vote in May? Seems like not a lot of time has gone by here between the end.
Rushing. We've thought about this for a while. It's the public rollout that might seem a little bit rushed.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
We've vetted this thing for quite a bit. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think that just because we're now coming out and we're having this time in the media that it's being rushed out. But this is something that we've had a lot of time to thinking about, getting numbers, crunching. The staff just doesn't come out with this wish list. They've spent a good 6 months trying to, formulate, trying to get together and see what they wanted to put on this bond.
Right.
That took a while before the council even saw that.
Right.
The city staff was actually vetting through all that before we even got a hold of it.
Why not spend several months at least selling this to the public before you take it to the ballot?
Well, there's no selling to the public. It is what it is. Either way,
I disagree.
There's an education piece.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
when I say selling, I mean
when people hear selling, they think that I want to try to convince people to vote for this thing, yes or no. Either way, if people vote no, it is what it is. That's the will of the people. People aren't ready for this bond. If people vote yes, then okay. That means the people are ready and they want to go ahead and see some.
Well, but you look, when you talk to the public, when I talk to people in the public, it's negative. There's a, for better or worse, there's a level of distrust that has developed over a period of time. And people, it's wrong to sit here and say, well, the council screwed this up 30 years ago, or back 20 years ago, they didn't do this. Well, we can't really worry about what didn't happen 20 years ago. We got to worry about here and now and tomorrow and the next day and so forth. But people do judge you, for better or worse, by
all means,
what has happened in the past. And I think a lot of people will look at this and go, well, we don't think they were good stewards of our money 20 or 30 years ago. Why should we believe you're going to be good stewards of it today?
Well, you put it eloquently in your article that I just read last night. They've kicked the can down the road so many times, and I can kick it past my tenure easily.
Yeah.
Whether I'm here 2, 4, 6 years, and Darren Leicher can kick it past his tenure, and so can Russell Shriver. We can all do that. But at some point, somebody has to be the responsible party.
Right.
Whether individuals like it or not, whether it loses me votes or not, somebody has to be responsible for it. And I'm not, a lot of people are like, well, you're out there raising my taxes. No, I'm not. I'm giving you the option. Wichita Falls, or at least we're going to put this thing on a menu. We're going to let you vote on it. And if you vote it down, oh my God, that's the will of people. You weren't ready for it. Right. And then the onus is off of me. I can say, you know what? We went through an exercise. We gathered the information. We put it on a ballot. We tried. Now, if City of Wichita Falls is not ready for that, then they're not ready for it.
Well,
but I just can't kick the can any further down the road. I wouldn't feel like a responsible mayor if I did it. I can't blame Glenn. It's not that Glenn did it. Glenn was fighting a drought for 5 out of 6 years.
Right.
So, he didn't have a choice. He had to buckle down and save the city. I have a choice. I have a choice whether to kick it down the road or put this for the citizens and let them vote on it. Right. Because, you put it the same way I do. There's 2 ways. I'm either trying to bring in industry and bring Wichitans here, but the second half is the retention. I'm actually trying to retain these people also. We have so many Wichitans that want to go somewhere else.
Growth here has been flat for over half a century. I mean, we've been about 100,000 people, give or take 3 or 4 or 5,000 one way or another, since the 60s. We just haven't grown, and that's a problem. I mean, we're clearly not bringing new money and new taxpayers into the city, and as you say, retaining them. We have young people that grow up here, they go to high school here, maybe they go to college here, but they don't all stay here. Many of them are going to leave, and they're going to go to Dallas or Fort Worth, or they're going to go to Austin or San Antonio, or out of state for that matter. And so retention is a big problem. Before we get too much further here, I want to start to kind of break this down a little bit for people. Okay. Proposition 1, parks improvements, a little under $7.4 million we're talking about here. We're talking about some parks stuff, a railroad easement, a trail to Loop 11 from Loop 11 to Lucy Park, which is under construction now. They're already doing work on the west side of the Loop 11 bridge. I don't think they've gotten much further than that.
If you look at those parks improvements, we're trying to finish the trail.
Right.
I think everybody wants this trail finished. It's been a long time coming.
Well, that started in the late 80s.
Yes, and that's a huge win for Wichita Falls. So a lot of that, and the good thing about that is we also have match grants coming in. So if we do, if the citizens say, yes, we want this, and we get some grants coming in, some of these grants from TxDOT, that frees up money to do other things within the park. So more quality of life. So a lot of those parks improvements, what you see is finishing the circle trail.
The softball complex turf.
That was something that wasn't high on the staff's radar.
Yeah.
But when council went through it, we all went home. We started going through this list, and we heard a little bit of, I call it testimony. We heard a little bit of our staff telling us what this was, this item. And it just struck with us. They showed us a rendering or a picture of a softball field. I think maybe it was in Oklahoma. And what it does, they showed us a stat of how many softball tournaments we're losing. Outside dollars you talked about.
Right.
Those outside dollars coming in, we're losing because of rainouts, poor field conditions, and then we're losing them to people who have turf fields. So we want to reverse that trend. That one made sense to us, not as much to the staff because they had to hire things on their list. But that was, I think, one of the few items where the council was like, I think this is important. I think it would be nice to have those softball fields have been used for years. It'd be nice to get those things turfed out so you don't get rainouts. I played softball for years and years, and every time you had a sprinkle that field was muddy, you didn't play.
Right.
Well, and like I said, and Mike and I talked about this list a little bit, or the preliminary list last Thursday, and that was one that, being on the school board, we did that as well. We put turf down on softball fields and baseball fields in the exact same reason. Not only is it good for our kids and good for the people here, it's good for bringing outside dollars in.
That's right.
Because you get tournaments, you get people that come into town, play tournaments, buy gas here, stay here, buy food here, and things like that. So that's one of those things that I can completely see the vision on that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Lake Wichita improvements. The Lake Wichita Revitalization Committee was put together a few years ago. They've been doing some private fundraising to get some projects done, but we're looking at a little under $4 million, $3.915 million for the Lake Wichita improvements. Why has that made the cut?
That's made the cut. They came with a 15-point, almost a $16 million package. We told them, bring us your wish list, just like we told the staff.
Right.
They came with us, and most of that, if you look, actually has to do with completing the circle trail, and then the other ones are items that we already have match grants for.
Right.
So the state of Texas gave us $499,000 for one item and $499,000 for the other.
Yeah.
The Lake Wichita Revitalization Committee hasn't come forward with the match money, so we placed that on the bond. Hopefully they still come forward with the match money and they could forward a lot of that money towards another improvement. Right. But the Vietnam Memorial Plaza, that's no brainer for me.
Mm-hmm.
Those vets here in town will have a place to go to, a memorial. It's going to be gorgeous. If you've ever looked at the rendering, it's a beautiful place for our vets. We need something in our town. A lot of towns have something for their vets. We just don't have that one great spot, one place of celebration for them.
Right.
That made sense. The other one's completing the trail, and the other two are match grants. So all four of those projects made sense to us. That was kind of a no-brainer. The other ones that we just couldn't pull the trigger on, a boat ramp or
explain to people, if you would, the circle trail, the Lake Wichita projects, all this other stuff, the softball fields. Exactly how does that enhance quality of life for people who already live here?
It gives people options, gives people things to do. You hear it all the time. There's nothing to do for family in Wichita Falls. There's nothing for me to do. You hear it from our airmen. You hear it from MSU. Rather than just not do anything about that, we're going to try to do something about that. We're going to try to retain. It's all about the retention. Individuals, millennials. We had consultants come to us saying, "Hey, you've got this section of millennials. It's going to be the biggest section of your city right now. It used to be our retirees. Keep them. Give them something to do. Revitalize the downtown. Give them a park system that's better. We've always had a really good park system. Jack Murphy was a great innovator when it comes to parks. Give them the circle trail. Give them things along the shorelines of the lake. These are all quality life issues that help make decisions when families want to move here or when families want to stay here."
Proposition 3, street improvements. I want to get into that. $17.3 million. And we talked a little bit during the break about this. You're basically trying to maintain what we have. Several months ago, back I think probably early part of the summer of last year, you were here, and we talked a little bit about this. And we were looking at $30-40 million at that point, I think, to actually do major street renovations. So this doesn't even come close to that number.
No.
It's less than half, well, about half that number. Why are we just trying to maintain? It would seem to me we have a lot of streets in this city that are in pretty bad shape that haven't been fixed, really repaired properly in 2-3 decades maybe. Shouldn't we be focusing a lot of money on getting that done rather than just trying to maintain? Why are we just trying to maintain?
We lean heavily on Russell Schreiber, our public works director, and he tells us, he gave us a chart, and really the chart said it all. If he had $11 million, what he could do. If he had 30-something million dollars, what he can do, and he had $70 million, what he can do. So he sat back and thought about that, and he wanted to be good. He said, if I was in your position, if I sat where you sat on that dais, what would I do? That $11 million for paving improvements is what he's recommending, and that's just to basically maintain our paving index. We have a paving index. We score our streets.
Yeah.
There's a minimum that citizens start noticing, streets start looking bad. He says, if I could just maintain that right now, hold our own, that's the responsible thing to do. Putting $30 million behind it just ticks it up just enough to where the public doesn't even really notice. And of course, $70 million is never going to pass, and that's not being very responsible.
Well, let's talk fantasy world here.
Okay.
Let's say we could do a $70 million bond for streets. Would that improve things to such a degree that we would have more than just a few years of great streets in our city?
It would, but it wouldn't, because we have so many streets. Like I said, the can has been kicked down the road so far.
Yeah.
$70 million would do, I mean, it's not like it wouldn't do great. It would do wonders. But I'm afraid that, it would be noticeable, but not noticeable for 20 years plus. We'll be running ourselves in the same situation. Like Russell said, being responsible is the $11 million. That's being responsible. Hopefully, you could shift some money around, shift your paving program around. We're trying to do a little more, not innovative things. We're doing a chip seal project, which is basically a hot tar with rock on top. You could do a lot more with a lot less money. They do it in Berkeley. They do it in a lot of cities. We're going to start doing that program. We're start doing some microsurfacing. So there's a lot of things that we could do differently to make our money spread. We're going to try that approach first before we go ask citizens for $30 million.
Well, I'm looking at it from this point of view. We say we do the $11 million now, and we maintain what we have. We maintain that index that you referred to. But, 5 years, 10 years down the road, they're in worse shape than they were before. Do we just continue maintaining? At some point, you have to fix the problem 100%, not just 50% or 30%. You have to, at some point,
I agree.
You have to fix the problem from top to bottom.
And our public works director says we're not at that point yet. So we take his advice. He's the expert. He's the engineer. So we're going to take his index and what he says our index is going to dip to. We're going to take that at face. And hopefully, and you can tell as technology gets better and innovations get better, and we hopefully start doing a little growing.
Yeah.
Maybe we start shifting the money around. We can improve our pay. We're paving about $2 to $3 million worth of roads already a year.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that around that $5 million mark.
Darren Leiker, the city manager, was on the show with me about 3 weeks ago. We talked about some of the other infrastructure issues with water mains, and he said there were well over 100 active repairs going on at that time. Various stages of repair somewhere in the city. And we see broken water mains all over the place. We have a lot of water lines in this city, water mains that are very old. They're decaying quickly. And our city water department maintenance people just spend all their time patching lines. Why are we not throwing money at replacing that infrastructure?
It's the same thing. We lean heavily on Russell. He tells us we're holding our own, and we're doing well with what we have. 100 open holes is, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh. Well, we're a pretty good sized town. 100 open holes is not bad, especially in the winter. You can talk to any municipality, 100,000 people. 100 open holes is about where you're going to be in the winter, especially when things start thawing out. So he's not worried about it yet. He's getting there, but a good portion of the downtown money is for some infrastructure. And you look at your oldest and worst infrastructure. That's our downtown area. That's where your 100-year-old lines are.
City Hall Memorial Auditorium. There's a $77 million for a City Hall public safety complex. One thing I want to hit on here, because I know your time is limited this morning. I know Memorial Auditorium I mean, it's stuck in 1972 down there. It really is. Actually hasn't had a major renovation since the 60s, mid 60s.
It's old, my friend. It's old.
And there's a lot of things there that obviously need to be repaired. I've been backstage. I've been in the behind the scenes areas. I know there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and there's even some real safety issues there as well to address. But you also include some money for MPEC, a security system, LED lighting, and so forth. But one thing that I don't see addressed in there,
sound system,
the sound quality, the acoustics of the Coliseum are bad.
I
they're
truthfully, when I got the MPEC list, each individual department brought us their list. When I got the MPEC list, I was a little disappointed that there wasn't more on the list. When we first got approached by Spectra, they said these are the things that are going to need to be improved for us to have a quality, top-notch facility. Sound quality was on there. It didn't make the list. I'm not real sure why, and I haven't really dove into, are they just asking, I think this is doable, and the other stuff is just so grandiose wish list that it'll never happen? I would have liked to see some of that.
I think one thing you have to, look, I know we're trying to bring another hockey team to Wichita Falls. Mayor, I don't see how it's going to work. And the reason I say that is we've tried it twice. We've tried, the Nighthawks football. Those guys poured a ton of money into trying to make outdoor amateur football and arena football work. Wichita Falls, I don't know why. I've lived here my whole life. I don't understand it. For whatever reason, we don't embrace sports. High school football, hell yeah, all day, all night long. But we will not embrace other sports activities. You can do it all day long, but you got to put butts in the seats. People got to buy tickets. They got to go buy the concessions. They got to buy the souvenirs. They got to spend money. And people here just don't get excited about that. So it feels like the future of the Coliseum is going to be concerts, music concerts, comedy concerts, other indoor events, the tractor pulls, the rodeos, whatever. You need to improve the customer experience there. And the sound quality inside the Coliseum goes totally toward that, improving the customer experience. If the customer experience is better, more people are going to show up. They're going to want to show up.
I agree with you 100%. That's a good reason why we brought on Spectra, because they are the experts in marketing. They're the experts in entertainment. We're the experts in potholes, water, sewer, fire, and police.
Well, I certainly hope that somehow gets on the list. Is that something that the council can go back and readdress, or even just add to that proposition on their own?
It's we can add anything. I mean, we're the council, so I mean, if we want to see something, we can put it on the list. Yeah. We would want to sit down and have a nice long talk with Spectra if that was something we wanted to do.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason they didn't put that on the list.
Right.
I don't know if that's in their long-term capital improvement plan. Yeah. If that's just not something they think is necessary right now.
Yeah.
But for me, I was a little disappointed in their list. I really want to see a bigger list. Let the citizens, have the option of wanting to improve MPEC, especially the facilities that's going to be holding concerts.
Yeah. Well, I think you got to look at it this way, and I've had this conversation on the air with a couple of people, with a couple of callers over the last few days. By the way, the talk line, if you want to talk to the mayor, 940-763-1290. And that is, it would be wonderful if Spectra or someone came in and just bought the whole thing out and took it over and made it a private enterprise and invested a bunch of money into it and did all these things, and the taxpayer didn't have to bear the burden of it. But that's probably not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
It's just not going to happen.
If it would have happened, it would have happened by now.
That's right.
It's just not going to happen. It's our baby. We got to take care of it. We need to make it as profitable, or as viable as we possibly can. I don't know if it'll ever be profitable in that. Well,
you use the exact same words Darren Liker said. He said, "We birthed this baby, so now we need to take care of it."
Right, and we really have to do that. And again, it comes down to the customer experience in the Coliseum. If people go to a concert there and it is painful to listen to because there's so much concrete and steel and you got all this sound reverberating back at you from every direction, and it makes it a bad experience, then it makes people not want to come back the next time.
Yep.
So you got to improve the customer experience to make it a viable operation. And I think that more than LED lighting, more than anything else, that needs to be top of the list.
People are paying a price for a ticket, and they want to go to an event that they felt that they, if you're going to pay $10, $15, whatever it may be,
right,
you want to you don't want to feel like you got ripped off for that ticket.
Right.
If you went to an event.
Well, most concert tickets now you're talking $50, $60
that's right.
or more.
You want to have a memorable event, not something you walk away where you remember bad sound. I can agree with you in that sense. It's just something we can sit down and talk to Spectra about.
I hope you will. I hope you do.
But also you have to understand what the nuts and bolts. I mean, that's going to have to look at it. What is it going to cost?
That's right.
To do that. I mean, you
Right.
know, it's not like you're going to go up there and spray a couple $1,000s worth of foam on the ceiling and done. I mean, this is probably a massive.
It's probably a major renovation.
Yeah, major
I'm
renovation
sure
project.
it is a major renovation, but when you look at the long term, I mean, this is a facility that we potentially will be able to use for 40, 50, 60 years into the future. I don't know how much life it's designed to have, but let's say it has another 50 years of life in it. Well, you've got to make it worth the money to go there. You've got to make it a viable option. And I'm sure, you know, come on, people talk. You know, somebody shows up with an event there and it's a bad experience, they're going to go tell the next guy. Word's going to get around, hey, that facility in Wichita Falls is just not worth the expense. Let's make it worth the expense.
Right.
And if we're going to incur debt to do things, then let's incur debt to do things that improve the quality of life for everybody, that improve the experience of coming to Wichita Falls and doing things. Let's make it better. If it's not improving the situation for everybody, it's really not worth dumping the money into. City Hall complex. There's a lot of stuff on there about that. The current city offices, which also houses Memorial Auditorium, has been there for a very long time.
Long time.
You got a lot of challenges down there. Overcrowding in offices. A building that is literally falling apart.
Sliding down the hill.
around you. Sliding down the hill. Parking is going. I love going.
Atrocious is the word I want to use.
I do enjoy going to concerts at Memorial Auditorium because it does sound so much better. But the seating is bad. The whole thing is just not a great
Put
experience.
a slide down the hill, down from the top parking lot down to the bottom.
I'm all for that. I'll do that. with a beer in one hand and a hot dog in the other.
There you go.
And then you've got all these issues to take care of. Now that's part of that $77 million. Also,
Yes.
okay.
Every bit of that.
So let's talk for a moment here about the renovations and why we need to do these so badly and what we're going to get for that money.
The renovations to Memorial Auditorium you're talking about
Yes,
is in the Spectrum money.
right. But I'm talking the city complex.
The city complex is a
all.
brand new complex.
So
altogether,
you're
get
abandoning what's there.
abandoning what's there, building a brand new fire, police, and city complex all together.
Okay.
If you do it that way, you save a whole lot of money.
Now, what will happen, because you do have a lot of office space in the existing City Hall Memorial Auditorium complex, what will be done with all of that?
You know, we've discussed that, whether that's leasing that space out or maybe moving some other municipal function into that space. We haven't really vetted that out yet. We just don't know. We just know that we have to do something, and reasonably the best thing to do would be build one gigantic municipal structure that houses all of that. Saves the citizens money, so we're not building three different structures.
Right.
Does a lot of things with functionality, with flowability. It just saves the citizens money. When you go into one structure and you municipal courts there and your police are there and your fire are there, it does a whole lot better things for the city of Wichita Falls, and moving that stuff downtown helps in that endeavor.
Now, you did mention how the current complex has a lot of physical structural issues right now.
It's got some bad issues.
It's got some bad issues. Okay, so let's say you repurpose that and you lease that out to someone else for some other purpose, or you find some other city public purpose for that. Is there any money in there to address those structural issues with that building, or do we just let that go until some other time, kick that can down the road, as it were?
There's just several options we're going through right now. We can spend money right now to shore that up. We don't know how long it'll shore it up.
Right.
If we're basically, let's stop it from sinking. We hope we stop it from sinking.
It was built in the 20s, yes?
It's built in the 20s on an oxbow lake.
And it was on a lake, yeah.
Yeah.
Most Wichitans don't know that, the Wichita River had a big oxbow in it, and they straightened it out and filled in the bow part of it, and that's where we built our city complex for some. And on a spread footing. Now we drill piers in the earth to hold your structure up. That was on a spread footing, which means not good. It was done to the technology of the time.
Right.
Problem is, it gives us issues today. So
Right.
it's just like you said before. Do we just throw good money after bad? We don't feel that we need to. Blake Yurchek, our facilities guy, he tells us
Yeah.
that we can get this thing up to snuff and maybe pour $20-30 million into it and renovate the whole structure. But what does that get us? I mean, for $30 million, that buy us 20 years? I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
When, our heating system, we have a one-way system. You either get hot air coming out or cold air. and it takes a while. You can imagine how big that structure is. If you're just like today starts off cool, it might end up in the 80s today. So you're gonna turn the air conditioner on at some point. It takes forever just for that to change. It's not efficient. It's wasting citizens' money. It's just not an energy efficient building. There's no flowability. Our engineering department's upstairs. Our city manager's downstairs. Just no rhyme or reason to how things are done. Structures now, it's real simple. Permitting is next to engineering, is next to public works. It's just all right there. A contractor, developers are really frustrated sometimes. It'd be nice for them to come in one door and walk themselves through the process so they walk out with permitting and the ability to get some answers for some of their structures.
Right.
Police don't have that right now. And the police department, if any citizen would ever go toward the police department, I think every single person would vote yes. It is laughable. We talk about people being in cubicles. They're in ethicals. I mean, you could put your arms out and touch each other. The motors unit, PD, or you see all these motorcycle cops. It's like they're in a closet.
I've never
literally in a closet.
Just the construction of the police department, the facility. I've never understood it. It is the strangest building.
It's
weird.
It was probably cool in the 50s.
Back
or 60s,
in the days, it probably made sense, but it is the evidence. I mean, they're doing what they can, and the chief says, "All right, if they tell us no, we'll figure it out." But it is laughable. You walk through there.
It's a really weird structure.
It's a weird structure, and there's, we're talking about these are the people protecting the city of Wichita Falls, detectives, people trying to solve murders. Just the evidence room. If anybody went to the evidence room, it's not like TV. It's not like you got these racks of beauty. It's just we are popping at the seams with evidence. TVs, guns, safe, marijuana. I mean, it's the truth. You go down there and it reeks of marijuana. It's hot. It's almost laughable when you walk through the structure. And then I asked the question, the very first time I did the tour, when I became city councilor, I was like, has anybody ever considered building just the police department? And well, it comes up every now and then, but we don't know if the citizens want it. So that was one of the first things I said, throw that on the bond.
Well, I know you've got to go because you got another meeting to get to. Real quick, if you can, what could you say, or what would you say to convince the voters this is a good idea?
It's simple for me. For my sake, as the mayor, I don't think it's responsible for us to kick the can down the road anymore, because my children are going to inherit this mess, and maybe my children's children are going to inherit this mess. Yes. I don't feel good about myself doing that. Is it the popular thing to do? It's like going on the radio saying, I want to raise taxes. Well, it's probably not the popular thing to do if you're an elected official, but I know it's the right thing to do. You have to invest in your community. You should never pass up on an opportunity to better your community. The
tax increase we're looking at is about 16 cents.
If everything goes through, it's a 16 cents tax increase. If you break that down, not a whole lot. They break it down by the day. They can break it down by the hour. It's not a lot. If I'm looking at myself, a couple $100 a year in order to get all these great things for downtown. We didn't even touch on downtown, but the great things for downtown, a new city complex, takes care of my PD, takes care of my streets, completes my circle trail. For me, by all means, I'll do it. I know I will never pass up an opportunity to make Wichita Falls a better place.
Downtown, we are trying to revitalize it.
Yep.
There has been a lot of investment in downtown. A lot of buildings have been bought, renovated, or in some stage of renovation right now, and we are trying to revitalize that. It's not going to be what it was in the 40s or 50s or even the 60s, but it's going to be a whole lot better than it was in the 70s and 80s. I can remember downtown Wichita Falls growing up here in the 70s and 80s, and you could fire a cannonball down Scott Avenue and not hit anybody.
That's right.
It was dead.
You either had Sears or the Green Stamp store.
That's pretty
right.
much. Yeah.
And
that wasn't even really downtown.
When Sears and Muehlberger's left, things started going south. I wasn't a great believer in downtowns. I wasn't at all. Until I would tell this story all the time. I went to Chicago. I took the last stop. I had a friend that lived in Oak Park, Illinois. She was the last stop on the elevated train.
Yeah.
When I came back to Wichita Falls, they said, "Hey, how was Chicago?" I couldn't tell them because I never did go. I stayed in Oak Park, Illinois, because they had to revitalize downtown, and it was great.
Right.
So I'm behind that movement now. I really feel that it's necessary. It's the heart of our community. It really is.
There's you've got a lot of money in there for streetscapes, improvements, sidewalk improvements, and things like that.
And the water lines. A big portion of that's infrastructure.
Yeah. So, and a lot of those water mains that are, some of them over 100 years old.
100 years old. And that's silly to think about, but it's two things. It's kind of cool to think we have 100-year-old water lines that are still working. And two, that I cannot believe. I mean, the other day we paved over bricks. I don't know if, I'm in the highway industry, so that's what I do for a living. Paving over bricks to me was just silly. We didn't have a choice, We got a really thin budget. So bricks are there, and they've been there 100 years. All right, we'll pave over the top of them.
Yeah.
We're going to take care of a lot of those issues downtown. Mayor
Stephen Santellana, if people want to get in touch with you or the city offices to talk about any of this, how do they do it?
I give you two ways: Stephen.Santellana at wichitafalls.tx.gov, and my cell phone number 940-781-5321.
All right, Mayor, thanks very much for being here this morning, and look forward to having you back in a few weeks, and we're going to talk about this some more.
You bet.
All right.